At last, Stranger Things has come to an end. After nearly 10 years and 5 seasons, we finally wrapped up the story of Eleven, her friends, and the horrors that Hawkins has endured. And now that it's over, we need to talk about it. Let's start from the finale. Emotionally, it works. There are moments designed to hit hard, and for the most part, they do. Hopper's monologue, Eleven's internal struggles, and farewell moments between characters can genuinely tug at your heartstrings. From a logical standpoint, though, that's where the finale starts to falter. The show promised big stakes, twists, and intense battles, yet much of the episode plays it incredibly safe. It's soft, painless, and at times frustratingly easy. After hearing the hype surrounding the last season, I approached it cautiously, but even I didn't expect the finale to feel so underwhelming in key moments. The episode opens up with the group entering the Upside Down. Predictably, they split into two teams. Eleven, Kali, Hopper, and Murray head to Hawkins' lab, so Eleven can use the water tank to access Vecna's mind. Meanwhile, the rest of the gang heads to the Upside Down version of the radio tower, with Max and Vicky remaining behind in the real Hawkins. The plan is simple. Climb the tower, wait for Eleven to defeat Vecna, save the captured children, and hope the rift doesn't destroy the structure. As you might expect, things start immediately to go sideways. The rift misses the tower, and tower starts shattering before Eleven and Kali even reach Vecna, creating chaos that sets the stage for the rest of the episode. Despite the high stakes, there are several genuinely emotional moments that land. Mike and Will share a conversation where Mike acknowledges that they're not just friends, they're best friends. The dialogue is awkward, a little funny, and slightly off, but it's meant to show the depth of their bond. More impactful, though, is Eleven's conversation with Hopper, where he tells her he is aware of her willingness to sacrifice herself to stop Vecna. Hopper's monologue, in which he recounts how Eleven was used and abused, how she never had a normal childhood, is one of the most powerful moments in this season. The scene when Vecna manipulates Hopper, planting illusions that make him believe he's accidentally killed Eleven, is exceptional. The combination of emotion, tension, and acting is easily one of the best sequences of the season. Then comes the black screen deaths. Steve falls from the tower after it is struck by the rift, leaving the audience hanging for a few agonizing seconds. But he's saved by Jonathan. It's a classic fake death move, familiar from other shows, but it feels tired and unnecessary here. These fake-out highlights are a recurring problem with this finale. Tension is promised, but very rarely delivered. Most obstacles are solved too easily, making the finale feel flat. Vecna in particular is heavily nerfed this season. He feels less threatening than in season 4. There's almost no tension in his confrontations, and even the final fight against him and the Mind Flayer feels easy and unearned. Season 4 had set extremely high expectations for both stakes and horror, but season 5 struggles to deliver either of those. The Mind Flayer, once terrifying, now feels manageable and oddly underpowered. Even the children captured by Vecna, who are supposed to enhance his strength, contribute almost nothing to the final battle. By the time it ends, it feels like heroes barely broke a sweat, suffering nothing more than a few bloody noses. The writing choices in this finale also raises several questions. Why did the story need a play to explain Henry Creel's backstory? Why wasn't he recognized by anyone from previous seasons if he had interactions with the Hawkins gang in the past? And why does the timeline feel so inconsistent, with Henry supposedly being a child in one season but old enough to participate in high school plays in the other? These moments rely too heavily on exposition rather than letting the story unfold naturally. Similarly, the consequences of the final battle feel rushed and unrealistic. The main characters climb massive rocks, dodge monsters, and reach their goals in minutes, an example of pacing that sacrifices tension for convenience. Yet, the finale isn't without its victories. Will finally gets an active role in defeating both Vecna and the Mind Flayer, which is satisfying given all the trauma he endured in previous seasons. Henry's backstory also gives depth to his character, showing the fine line between victim and villain. The emotional payoffs between the main characters, Eleven and Hopper, Steve and Jonathan, even some minor relationships, remain strong. These moments are a reminder of why the audience have cared about these characters for so long. The final battle, however, still falls short of expectations. Season 4 sets a high bar for epic confrontations, and Season 5's resolution lacked the same intensity. Demogorgons, Demodogs, and other familiar creatures are entirely absent, leaving the Mind Flayer to face the heroes without any real backup. Its power is underwhelming. its threats minimal, and many sequences leave you wondering why key elements were included to build the tension. Some questions remained unanswered. If Will was connected to the hive mind, why wasn't he affected by the destruction of Vecna and the Mind Flayer? Why did the military leave Hawkins so abruptly without confronting or detaining anyone? Why were certain fights resolved so quickly, leaving minimal room for suspense? The handling of deaths in the finale is equally frustrating. Kali is of course brought back to die off screen. Vecna is dispatched in a manner that feels almost trivial, and no major main characters suffer permanent consequences. It seems as though the writers were intent on preserving fan favorites rather than creating real stakes. They did have guts to kill 11 in the end, and I'll give them that, but that is also purposefully left ambiguous enough so they could possibly create spin-offs in the future. In my opinion, 11's death, as tragic as it is, it does make sense. The military has been looking for her for so long, and they would never give up. Therefore, her existence and presence at Hawkins puts everyone she loves in danger. But unfortunately, this alone is not enough. After 11's goodbye scene with Mike, the finale is padded with a 40-minute epilogue that, while emotionally resonant, could have been condensed to maintain momentum. Still, there are moments of closure that work well. The final scene where the gang plays D&D and says goodbye to their characters bring the series full circle. It's a simple, heartfelt moment, and it reminds the audience why they fell in love with the show in the first place. It's emotional, nostalgic, and thematically satisfying, even if it can't fully compensate for the finale's flaws. What's most disappointing is that this season, which had the potential to deliver a dark, intense conclusion, instead chose to sanitize the stakes. In the end, the finale is a mixed bag. It delivers on emotional beats, it honors the relationships we've followed for years, and it closes the story in a sentimental way, but it falters in stakes, logic, and tension. From a show that has given us some of the most memorable horror and science fiction moments on television, Season 5 ends as a reminder that hype sometimes can outweigh execution. It's heartfelt, occasionally thrilling, and often frustrating, leaving audiences with questions, inconsistencies, and a bittersweet sense of closure. But how did we even get to the point we just talked about? Season 5 was long awaited. In the meantime, the kids grew up, the world changed, and the reality hit immediately the moment they appeared on screen. It was genuinely jarring to see how much older they got compared to the previous season. It took some time to adjust, and after you do, something still feels off. Once you get used to their age, you start noticing that the dynamics between the characters don't feel right anymore. A lot of relationships and a lot of character personalities feel oddly reset. It's as if the characters are meeting each other for the first time and the actors are meeting their roles for the first time as well. Many characters feel misplaced or sidelined, and some feel like they shouldn't even be there at all. Joyce is the biggest victim of this reset. This season feels like the writers completely forgot who she was. She's reduced to her season 2 state where she's constantly worried about Will. But this time that's all she is, a mother whose only plan is to hover and panic. Where is Joyce the investigator, the woman who uncovered key truths in earlier seasons, the woman who went on a full-blown Mission Impossible to rescue Hopper from Russia? Why is she all of a sudden a 7-year-old woman who does not know how to use a smartphone? She gets one big moment in the whole season and that's it. Outside of that, she barely exists as a character, not the Joyce we knew. This happens a lot in the show. Hopper feels different. His and Eleven's relationship is weirdly strained this season. It's strange to see, especially after everything they've been through in previous seasons and all the time they spent apart. It just regressed back to their relationship from season 2, where he prohibits her from doing anything and she does it anyways. Why does this show never let their characters learn from their past mistakes? The list of bad writing decisions just keeps going, and it's not just that. The acting was awkward. The characters' relationships were awkward. Take Nancy and Jonathan's relationship as an example. They were always a strange fit. From the start, the only thing that connected them was their shared trauma. It shouldn't take Murray to explain that to us or to them. They don't fit together, and neither does Steve. This love triangle should have been done long time ago. Steve deserved to outgrow it and be interested in someone else, even if that someone is off screen. I was surprised to find out that the only reason for that big scene with Jonathan and Nancy being trapped in the melting room was just for them to break up. It was a beautiful metaphor for their decaying relationship, but also at the same time it was too benign, not threatening enough. It should have been used as a powerful send-off to at least one of their characters, but instead they chose safety and created a scene that confused the audience so much that people thought they were engaged, not broken up. Steve and Dustin's big emotional scene is in the same episode, and that one hit me harder than anything Jonathan and Nancy did or talked about. Gaten Matarazzo did such an amazing job this season, and Dustin's pain over Eddie's death and his fear of losing Steve is one of the realest storylines this season. Among some other could have been a great emotional moment and a great finisher for such a long build-up was Will's coming out scene. The initial exchange between Will and Joyce is intimate and heartfelt. It's a son wanting acceptance from his mother, and that part works. Then Mike joins, and it still makes sense since they're best friends, and it's implied that Will had some romantic feelings for Mike in the past. But then Will says, "Bring everyone in. Everyone needs to hear this." Why? Why does everyone need to hear this? The group hug that followed feels awkward and forced. The issue isn't what Will says. It's sincere and painful, and it made me feel for him. The issue is, why did everyone have to be there? Kali, Vicky, Steve, Murray, why are all these people present for such a deeply personal confession? It cheapens the moment instead of strengthening it. This is why the episode was poorly received. It's written strangely, especially when earlier we're told that only 3 people knew about Robin, and those were the 3 people closest to her. Will deserved that same level of intimacy, not a public announcement. At this point, I feel like I'm going through a list of things I disliked about this season, but the worst part is that there's so much I can add to it. I always thought and have always said after watching season 4 that Max should have died. I did like her character from the moment she showed up. I loved her character arc in season 4. It was beautiful. But can you just imagine what her death would mean for all the other characters, mainly Eleven, who did so much to save her? Just imagine a scenario where Eleven wasn't able to save her, the emotional impact that would have on Eleven. It would make her mission to kill Vecna/Henry so much more than what it ended up being. After seeing season 5 several times, I like even less Max's character. She's being used as an exposition tool, and that makes all her scenes quite boring to watch. She also got paired with Holly, someone who was a background character for most of the show and who just newly became a prominent character important to the story, and that felt like an odd choice. But strangely, Max's and Holly's chemistry is great. Their escape from Camazotz is somewhat interesting. Them walking through memories is okay, but it feels like a failed try at capturing the same energy Max's running up that hill scene had. It doesn't work. The writing is a bit clunky because what was the point of that podcast right before they escaped the Camazotz? There's just so many questions. Now that we mentioned Holly, Vecna kidnapping children is not a bad idea on its own, but the execution is half-baked and poorly thought out. Why 12 kids? It was never explained in the show, and there are so many theories that could have easily explained this, such as the one where there are 12 positions on the clock, or maybe the number shouldn't have even been 12. Maybe it could have been a number corresponding to the number of kids Henry killed in the Hawkins lab massacre. The connection is right there, yet it's never made. When you're casually watching the show, all of these things are very easy to ignore, but once you start to analyze it, the problems become even more obvious. The lack of deaths this season did kill a story a little bit. At the very least, the show could have killed someone like Ted Wheeler. What was the point of him surviving the Demogorgon attack? He's never even visited by his kids afterwards, nor mentioned by anyone, and he only ever shows up for Mike's graduation. This inability to kill off even smallest of the characters drains the season of stakes. Very early on, it becomes clear that no one important is going to die. There's no reason to stay on edge. Why does no one question the military presence in Hawkins, the giant steel plates, the delayed discovery of monsters? These things are not subtle. How did they build the lab in the Upside Down? Where did the Demogorgons go? Why are there so few monsters in the Upside Down? If they're not there, where are they? Why is the military consistently portrayed as incompetent, losing to children with improvised weapons? Overall, this season feels disconnected from the rest of the show. Its strongest asset is its emotion, and even that is inconsistent, where everything feels hollow and poorly explained, too rushed and not well thought out. Stranger Things seasons 4 and 5 feel like two different versions of the same story, almost as if the show changed what it wanted to be between them. Season 4 is dark, emotional, and genuinely scary in a psychological way, while season 5 is louder, bigger, filled with spectacle. Comparing them really highlights how the show changed from horror rooted in trauma of its characters and their personal fears towards an apocalyptic final battle story, which had very pale versions of characters' internal conflict. Season 4 is built around the idea that the monsters in the Upside Down are connected to the monsters inside the characters. Max's grief, Eleven's identity crisis, Nancy's guilt, and all the other various fears all feel intertwined directly in the season's main villain, Vecna. He isn't just another creature coming out of Portal. He's someone with motivations, emotions, and a history. Someone who was born in our world and who became a monster. His kills are slow, invasive, and personal. They aren't just violent, they're intimate. It's not only the broken bones and floating bodies, it's the fact that Vecna crawls directly into people's memories and insecurities. That makes season 4 feel like horror in the truest sense. You can't just run away because the threat is inside your head. The clock ticking, the hallucinations he puts his victims through, all of it means something. While season 5, in contrast, changes the focus from inner horror to external destruction. The themes become more about the end of the world, the breaking of Hawkins, and the final stand against the Upside Down, which does make sense for the final season, of course, but the way they go about it is bad. Emotion is still there, characters are grieving, reuniting, sacrificing, but the storytelling revolves much more around poorly constructed spectacle and less about the role each of the characters has in it. Visually, the change is obvious. Season 4 has a gloomy, oppressive atmosphere. The lighting is darker, the frames feel tighter, and everything looks wet, cold, and sick in the very Upside Down way. Vecna feels especially real and menacing in season 4. All of these things are much more noticeable once you binge watch one season after another. The action scenes in season 5 are supposed to be bigger, but they fall flat. Vecna himself feels less threatening in season 5 than he did in season 4. A big part of it is how the story treats him. In season 4, he feels like an unstoppable psychological force who is always one step ahead. In season 5, he starts to feel more like a final video game boss the characters need to defeat. He still hurts people, he manipulates, but some of the mystery and psychological dread vanish. The more the show explains him and the more they physically confront him, the smaller he feels as a villain. This also connects to how the show handles the Mind Flayer. Earlier in the series, the Mind Flayer was terrifying because it was barely understandable. It was this giant, shadowy intelligence that seemed ancient and mysterious. We are shown how Vecna found it in the Abyss. Both the monster and the Abyss look different, better than in season 5. But arguably, the biggest difference between seasons 4 and 5 is emotional impact. Season 4 lingers. Max's storyline is heartbreaking because it's quiet and painful and drawn out over time. Her running scene with running up that hill doesn't just work because of music or editing. It works because we watched her drown in guilt for episodes. Eleven's arc, rediscovering who she is and how her powers connect to her past, is about self-definition, not just beating a villain. Even side plots like Eddie and the Hellfire Club are rooted in themes of outsider identity, shame, and the need to be seen for who you really are. If you binge watch everything all at once, one season after another, the changes seem way more radical, and seeing season 5 right after season 4 made season 5 worse in comparison. Season 1 was a contained, small-town mystery with horror elements that not many people initially cared about. The only truly famous person attached to the show was Winona Ryder, and she was heavily used as the selling point in marketing. When the show came out in July 2016, it slowly started gaining traction, and then it completely exploded. I remember people talking about it everywhere. Everyone loved it. A missing kid, monsters, a creepy alternate dimension. It worked. Over time, Stranger Things became the most popular show Netflix has ever made, and it still holds that title today. With the popularity came growing expectations, and I honestly think that was the show's greatest undoing. It became too big for its own good. Unlike shows like Game of Thrones or Pretty Little Liars, which consistently tried to shock audiences with wild twists, Stranger Things chose the opposite route. It played it safe. It has always played it safe. From season 1 onward, they never once killed a true main character. Every major death belonged to a character introduced specifically to be sacrificed later. It was first Bob, Bob than Eddie Munson in season 4. What the writers didn't anticipate was how much people would love Eddie. They gave him one of the most iconic moments in the entire show and then still killed him anyway, which was good and showed that the show still had some stakes. Season 4 in general had an overwhelming number of moments that went viral. Scenes, songs, characters, everything blew up online, and in my opinion that popularity directly influenced the poor decisions made in season 5. And in my opinion that popularity directly influenced the poor decisions made in season 5. By the final seasons there were 13 main characters, and that number had only grown since season 1, and at some point it became unmanageable. When Stranger Things became massive, it also attracted an audience that is extremely protective of its favorite characters. People lose their minds at the mere suggestion that a main character might die. During season 4, there were countless comments saying people would riot if Steve or Hopper were killed, and I genuinely believe this pressure is what ultimately ruined the show. Rewatching the earlier seasons after finishing season 5 made one thing very clear: the show used to show and not tell. Visual storytelling did the heavy lifting. The Upside Down was terrifying without needing explanation. It was hostile, alive, and dangerous. In the final season, it's just dark. The monsters are mostly gone. The military replaces them as the primary threat. Then we enter the Abyss, which is bright, rocky, and visually sterile. This feels completely wrong. This is supposed to be the home of the ultimate evil, Vecna and the Mind Flayer. Instead, it feels empty and safe. The tone is gone. The danger is gone. The Upside Down is no longer what it used to be, and not because we learned something new about it, but because the rules simply stopped applying. Where did the vines go? The decay, the poison in the walls, the monsters, all of it is stripped away. The final season feels dumbed down, as if it's suddenly aimed at a much younger audience. It backtracks on its own mythology. Even small details make no sense anymore. Characters walk on vines without consequences. I noticed in one of the scenes in season 5 a church bench in the Upside Down that looked almost brand new. This show could have used some of the Silent Hill 2's Otherworld aesthetics. Visually and tonally, the show is confused. It's poorly paced, awkwardly edited, and inconsistent. At times, it feels less like the final season of one of the most popular shows ever made, and more like the first season of a show that still does not know what it wants to be. What makes all of this worse is the growing realization that the creators themselves didn't seem fully prepared. It shows. The season feels improvised, like something made up as it went along. It often feels as if the writers forgot what they had already established in previous seasons, contradicting their own rules at every turn. Compared to how the show started, what it represented, and how carefully it built its world early on, it's genuinely disappointing to realize that the conclusion lacks the same care. Fans spent years thinking about the smallest details, and the finale doesn't feel like it was giving that same level of attention. In the end, Stranger Things didn't fail because it tried something new. It failed because it became afraid of its own success. It stopped taking risks, and for a story that began with so much confidence, that's a very disappointing way to end. First of all, thank you so much to everyone who watched my previous video. I am honestly still in shock at how much support it received. The likes, views, comments. Talking with you all has been a real pleasure. When I uploaded the Pretty Little Liars video, I never imagined I'd be close to 800 subscribers by the time this one came out. So thank you so much for subscribing and supporting the channel.